Thank you all.
No, I can just say, this is actually English.
Thank you all for
Yeah,
joining
that's
us
fine.
on this beautiful fall day. I now understand the allure of doing Nutcracker or The King and I. You cast enough people and the grandparents will come. Anyway, we had a reading of this play at the Lawrence Public Library about 2 years ago, and 3 of the people at that reading are reprising or being in the play again. Dean Bevan is reprising the part of Old Frank, and Benjamin Good is reprising the part of Young Frank, and Will Averill, who read Middle Frank back then, is reading the part of Professor Byron Caldwell Smith.
Don't forget Oscar Wilde.
Oh, yes, and Jim Carruthers is reprising Oscar Wilde, of course. So let me tell you a little bit about the structure of the play, because the actual reading may be confusing if I don't tell you about the structure. The structure is that we are probably on the last day of Frank Harris's life, late August afternoon of 1931. He has been living in Nice on a walk-up apartment on the 5th floor, no elevators, of course, at that time. And so essentially, we are in his apartment, and there are 3 Frank Harrises. The young Frank Harris remembers everything that happened to him only up till age 16. The middle Frank Harris remembers everything that happened to him up till age 59 or 60, and nothing beyond. The old Frank Harris supposedly remembers everything up till age 76, but since he's now 76, his memory is starting to play tricks on him. So he's living in this impoverished 5th floor, very cold apartment with his second wife Nellie and his illegitimate daughter Frances Congdon. He never married Frances's mother. She was a music hall actress, but she has come to take care of him in his old age. And his second wife, Nellie, is living with him. So those are the people in the apartment. Everybody else down here are characters in his memory. And they will read lines strictly in his memory out of the memory pool. The apartment is fairly spare, except that try to imagine that downstage left is a gigantic statue of the Venus de Milo, of course, with prominent breasts but minus arms. That's the only decor in his apartment, is the Venus de Milo, because he will refer to it when Bernard Shaw comes to visit. What else can I tell you? I will try to introduce each scene to tell you who the characters are and what period and location we are in. Internally, I will try not to read stage directions because I think it will be fairly obvious. As soon as you realize that the way memory works is that maybe one word or one object or one image or one sound can trigger a memory. And so this is just the way memory works, is the way the play is structured. Okay? So Act 1 hopefully will be under an hour and we can take a short 10-minute break. And then Act 2 I think is less than an hour. And if people want to, we can answer a few questions. We have not had a rehearsal, but I have worked with most of these actors. Or I have heard them read in the Endicott Society's drama studies program. So hopefully it will all go well, even though we haven't had a single rehearsal. Yes, Jay?
Is audience participation encouraged?
There are a couple of party scenes where Oscar Wilde is supposedly very witty. So feel free to enjoy the wit. There are a couple of scenes in the Free Congregational Church in Lawrence where the speakers are being booed and hissed by the people in the church. Feel free to participate. All right, so I will, I do have extra copies of the script if anybody wants to follow on the script. You pass this back to David. Anybody else want the script? Pass this back to Georgianne. I have one more. Pass this to Hannah. Okay.
Thank you.
So it's like a musical score, you can follow. Okay. All right. It is Nice, late August 1931. Old Frank Harris is asleep in his study. The first two voices we hear in the dark are those of his father and mother. And the mother will be singing. The father, Thomas?
The child is ugly. Compared to others, this one is ugly.
Stop saying that. Little Jimmy is not ugly.
Then pray he never hopes to marry. Who'd want to marry anyone with a face like that?
There now, see what you've done? You frightened him. Too-ra-loo-ra-loo-ra, too-ra-loo-ra-lie, too-ra-loo-ra-loo-ra. Hush, now don't you cry.
Old Frank stirs fitfully in his sleep. Young Frank and middle Frank are watching him. He awakens as soon as the song is over.
Mother?
Isn't it odd how that song is our only memory of her?
That and how quiet the whole house was the day I ran up to kiss her cheek and Father said she was dead.
You cried because her cheeks were cold, not because she was dead.
We don't have too many memories of Father either, do we? He was always away at sea.
And when he was home, he never stopped reading that damned Bible of his. There was no way no one could talk to him.
Talk to him about what?
Things.
What things?
You know, things.
Ah, Frank, have you grown so old you no longer remember such things?
If it hadn't been for Nita, I wouldn't have
Known the facts of life.
His sister Nita Harris now appears in his imagination. She's brushing her hair and wearing very little.
Dear, dear Nita.
Fancy your own sister showing you her breasts and asking you to touch them. See how pretty they are, she said.
So big and round like apples.
Nita, if you were walking down the street and I tried to talk to you, would you talk to me?
Why not? You're my brother, aren't you?
I mean, if I wasn't your brother.
Well, that all depends.
On what?
Whether you were
Tall and handsome?
that too, but what's more important is whether or not you know how to flatter a girl.
What do you mean?
All girls like to be told they're pretty, that they have good eyes or good teeth or good hair. They all like their good points noticed and praised.
Is that all?
Oh no. They all like their dresses noticed too. Of course, you must also say that she is unlike any other girl you know, superior to all the rest, the only girl in the world for you. All women like to be the only girl in the world for as many men as possible.
Do girls like being kissed?
That comes afterwards. Flattery first of looks and dress, then devotion, and afterwards, the kissing comes naturally.
Well, how can you tell if a girl has had enough flattery and that she is ready to be kissed?
Jimmy,
Yes, Father.
come for your lesson
I already know the Bible by heart.
and tell that sister of yours to start supper and stop combing her hair.
Jimmy, remember, flattery first of looks and dress, then devotion, and the kissing comes naturally.
Nita's advice has stood you in good stead, hasn't it?
It worked. It really worked. Remember how it worked on all the girls in Chicago and Kansas?
Yes, but not in London. It did not work on Laura.
Laura was different.
Strip away the mask and she was no different from all the others.
There I was, 26, in London. I'd already seen half the civilized world, America, and almost all of Europe. But I had never met anyone like Laura. Nothing prepared me for that first meeting.
Laura now appears sitting in what seems to be the waiting room of an editorial office.
A window was behind her, and every detail of her appearance is printed in my memory. Even the shade of pink on her cheeks. Her eyes met mine and passed on long hazel eyes, good teeth, firm chin, and a mane of chestnut hair, brightened with the flecks of sunlight.
My God, it makes her sound like a horse.
Why not? Her parents were grooming her for the best stables in Europe. If only they knew how he used to mount and ride her.
Waiting to meet is most tiresome, isn't it?
Depends where and with whom.
Ah, you must be an American.
Why?
Well, the way you said that, very direct, very forthright, very American. A quality most refreshing, I might add.
And you are?
Harris, Frank Harris. Irish by birth, English by heritage, but American by disposition. I lived in America when I was younger, and now I'm here in London, trying to be a writer.
My name is Laura.
Laura?
Just Laura. If I told you the rest, you'd have to meet my parents. And I'm not sure they'd like you.
How can you be so sure they wouldn't like me?
Because you don't seem to have any money. And you probably don't speak as many languages as I do.
How many languages do you speak?
Genug, mehr als genug für einen Mann.
Oh, il dit français un peu plus, soit pour le clan?
Vero, così appassionato come l'italiano.
You're not a language teacher, are you?
No. My parents and I travel a great deal. Languages come easily to me.
Me too. After Gaelic and Latin, everything else is easy. Are you waiting here for someone?
My father. He's in there right now talking to one of the editors. And you?
I have here a letter of introduction to the publisher. I hope to write for the paper.
Is the letter from anyone important?
Thomas Carlyle.
The famous writer?
A good friend. He would not rest until I promised to pursue a career in writing. He and Byron Smith, a professor I had in America, are among the kindest, the sweetest, the gentlest human beings on God's earth. A moment with either one is worth a lifetime with anyone.
What are you doing tonight?
Why?
Perhaps you'd like to meet my parents. We're staying at the Savoy.
I thought you said your parents wouldn't like to meet me.
I'll tell them Carlyle is a good friend of yours. That should impress them for a while. But if you want them to think of you seriously, you must be successful in your field, and quickly.
Oh, but that is my intention, exactly. I mean to be the editor of a London paper before the year is over, before I am 27. The Spectator is only a start.
The Spectator is a penny paper. It isn't worth bothering with.
It isn't?
No. Why not aim for the Fortnightly Review or even the Saturday Review?
I will. By God, I will. Just you wait and see. I will.
See you tonight, Mr. Harris, at the Savoy.
The minute she started to tear that letter in half, I knew I had met my match. I fell hopelessly in love with Laura.
You say you fell hopelessly in love with Laura, and yet, when the opportunity came, you married another.
Well, what about you? When your chance came, you too married another.
Frank, could you help me with the door?
Nellie, who is Frank's second wife, now enters, showing off her new dress.
So how do you like the dress?
Oh, Nellie, surely not another dress. You know very well we cannot.
Good. If you do not recognize the outfit, then no one else will.
It isn't you?
No, of course not. It's the wedding gown. I asked Francis to alter it. No one at the party will know. Didn't Francis do a good job? That daughter of yours is good for at least something.
Has the postman been by? The last check from America should be,
It arrived this morning, and Francis has already been to the bank with it.
oh, good.
Francis is now at the pawn shop. I may be going to the party in an old gown, but I do not intend to go without my jewelry. It'll be nice to wear my diamonds again. Everybody at the party will...
You keep talking about the party. What party? Are we giving a party?
Oh, Frank, don't you remember anything? I am spending the weekend with the Crotches. The invitation came weeks ago.
Wasn't I invited?
Of course you were. Silly, but you know, you're still getting over your influenza.
We shouldn't have moved from the villa. This apartment is much too drafty. I feel so cold all the time.
It isn't the apartment, Frank. It's the company. Can't you see the woman has no love left for you?
I cannot believe that.
Nellie, like Emily and Laura, was simply dazzled by possibility.
I mustn't believe that.
What's that you said?
Nothing.
Are you talking to yourself again? Oh, Frank, you promised me you wouldn't do that anymore.
Why not take Frances to the party in my place? Introduce her to...
Allowing Frances to live with us is one thing. Being seen with her in public is another. She has no place in respectable society.
Well, she is my daughter.
Yeah, your bastard daughter, Frank, and she isn't the only one. Why not send for all the others and see if you can feed them with 10 francs? That's how much we had in the house until the check arrived this morning.
You use Frances like a maid, that's what you do. You order her about and use her like a maid.
Only because you cannot afford to give me a maid? We are the only people in this building without a maid.
Nellie, we mustn't quarrel, not like this. Come, give me a kiss and go to your party.
Soon enough, but not yet. I have to make a list of some of the people we owe. Bills to be paid.
I woke up this morning thinking of my mother.
Be quiet now. I have to finish this list before I go. Let's see. We owe...
Ah, to think that you had a small fortune in your pocket at age 15 when you first arrived in Kansas.
A sunny afternoon in June.
And what do you have now at age 75 after you've had the world? A drafty old apartment in Nice, 10 francs. 10 francs for old Frank. That's a good one, isn't it?
In his memory, we now see William Harris, his older brother, and Mrs. Lorna Mayhew, the wife of a wealthy casino owner in Lawrence in the mid-1860s.
Is that him?
No, I don't think so.
Don't know?
For God's sakes, Lorna, I haven't seen the boy in 4 years. He was only 11 then. Wait, I think I see him now.
Who, the one carrying all those books?
That's him, all right. As small and ugly as ever.
Oh, you just say that because you're jealous.
Me? Jealous? Why should I be jealous?
Men reach their peak when they're 15 or 16. You're way past your prime, William. I think he's cute. And who's that with him? He's cute, too.
Is there any man in Lawrence you don't think is cute? Jimmy, over here! And watch your language, Lorna. I don't want him to.
I'll talk any goddamn way I please.
Young Frank now appears carrying a lot of books with Byron Smith, who is also carrying suitcases and books.
Jimmy! Gosh, how you've grown! But no fatter. American meat and potatoes do not put weight on you. Look at you, huh? Just look at you.
Yeah, just like lean beef.
I'd like you to meet Mrs. Lorna Mayhew. Her husband runs the local casino.
Are all the women in Kansas as beautiful as you are?
Why, thank you.
This is Professor Byron Smith. We met on the train.
Your brother is extraordinary, William. We talked Milton and Shakespeare all the way from Chicago.
Ah, Shakespeare. I once saw a perfect Shylock in Kansas City. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh?
And if you wrong us, do we not revenge?
So, what do you profess, Professor?
Nothing of great importance, I'm afraid. I've been hired to teach Greek and Latin. Surprised the university didn't send someone to meet me.
Isn't that typical of those folks on the hill? Come, I'll take you up to Fraser Hall myself. I have my buggy with me. We can leave the long-lost brothers together.
I'll return these as soon as I finish them.
The Carlisle and Ruskin you can keep, but the marks I want back.
Be sure to come and see me, Jimmy. Maybe my husband can give you a job at the casino. I'm sure he'll be able to use a strong-bodied boy like you. Come before it gets dark. On the way, I can tell you all about the wildlife in Kansas.
How about the university? Do you know any of the faculty?
Wildlife faculty, same thing. Give a professor 2 or 3 shots of whiskey and he becomes part of the local wildlife.
Is she one of your...
So, tell me about your year in America. Nita wrote me all about how you ran away from school and how angry Father was when he learned the news.
I arrived in New York last May and found work immediately.
Doing what?
Building the Brooklyn Bridge. 6 or 7 of us would get into these iron chambers filled with compressed air, and then we would be lowered into the water. Our job was to dig the dirt and mud out of the bottom of the river. It was incredible.
And how long did you do that?
3 months. After that, I couldn't take it anymore, even though the pay was $10 a day.
You saved your money, I hope.
Most of it. After Brooklyn Bridge, I took it easy for a while, doing what many of the Irish boys were doing. That's how I met Mr. Kendrick. He seemed to take a shine to me.
I like you, boy. What's your name?
Harris, sir. Jimmy Harris.
Jimmy Harris. How would you like to come to Chicago and work for me? I own the Fremont Hotel, and I could use another night clerk. What do you say, Jimmy Harris?
I don't know, sir. It is so sudden.
Think it over. I don't go back until Friday. Here's my card and $20 to help you decide. You'll like Chicago, Jimmy Harris. And my hotel gets all of the interesting people. Wild Bill Hickok is a frequent guest. Ah, you could hear some of his stories. Wild Bill Hickok is the Shakespeare of the American West.
So that was how I came to spend 9 months in Chicago. I did meet Wild Bill Hickok, but I never heard him tell any stories. He was always too drunk.
So how much money did this Mr. Kendrick pay you for your work?
$60 a month for a start, but soon I was making $100 plus tips. The more I complimented the guests, especially the women, the more I got in return by way of tips. Finally, when I had $2,000 saved up...
$2,000? Jimmy, that's wonderful.
Be careful, Frank. Notice the look in his eyes?
The money. Where is it?
In here. I figured no one would want to steal an old shoe shine box. Do you want to see it?
No, not here. And what do you intend to do with the money, Jimmy?
I thought maybe I'd open a small butcher shop. Do you know any spot where I can...
The corner of 7th and Mass, right beside Liberty Hall. I'm sure the man who owns the property will let you put up a stall. How much do you think it'll take to get you started?
$300 or $400.
Listen, I've got a great idea. How would you like to be a partner in my real estate business and still run your butcher shop? With your remaining money, we could buy up the land around the university. It's cheap right now because there's nothing there. Jimmy, the university is bound to grow. And with the price of land, it'll skyrocket. You'll more than triple your original investment. You'll quadruple it. How about it, Jimmy? We'll share all the profits, 50-50. Let's shake on it. Good. We'll call our firm Harris & Harris. You'll think of a slogan.
Don't go amiss. Plot out your future with Harris & Harris.
Hey, come, let's eat. Afterwards, we'll drop by the casino. Everyone will be there, maybe even your Professor Smith.
No, I don't think so.
Don't be too sure about that. Lorna Mayhew seemed quite determined to show him a thing or two.
I don't think Professor Smith is the partying kind.
Come on, you must be starving. Tomorrow we'll see a lawyer about drawing up the papers for our partnership.
Fool? Have you ever met a greater fool?
Yes,
Who?
you and I both.
There, I am finally finished. Thank God for George Bernard Shaw. The last 9 months would have not been possible without the advances for your book on Shaw. $7,500? Imagine a publisher paying someone that kind of money simply because he happens to know Shaw.
Know him? It was I who gave Shaw his first real job in London. Without me, Shaw would still be selling telephone poles for the Edison Telephone Company.
Nellie, I am not just someone, I am Frank Harris.
Yes, of course. But even you must admit that Shaw brings home the bacon and you don't.
Shaw sells only because he is a superb publicist. He spreads the rumor that he never gives interviews to the press. So the reporters are ecstatic whenever he allows himself to be interviewed, which is 6 times a week.
Lights up on a lot of reporters, along with Mr. Scully, also a journalist, waiting for Shaw.
And since everyone is already convinced everything Shaw says is very witty, all he has to do at these interviews is look at the sky and say something banal like, "Ah, what a nice day it is." They all start laughing.
Oh, what a nice day it is. But then every day is a nice day, isn't it? In Nice, I mean. We could use days like this in England to say nothing of Ireland.
Oh, Mr. Shaw, would you have time to answer a few...
No, not today. I'm much too busy. Thinking, you know.
A new play?
It could be, yes. Something too good to be true, but not too true to be good. How about tomorrow? I'm seeing Frank Harris at...
Oh, Frank Harris?
The pornographer?
Is it true he wrote his autobiography for money?
He's here in Nice, isn't he? Why don't you ask him that yourself?
Oh, the injustice of it. Shaw, a millionaire in 1931, while Frank Harris is always just 2 steps ahead of bankruptcy.
2 steps? 1 step, Frank. You're not as nimble as he used to be.
I'm seeing Harris at 10:30 in the morning, so why don't I squeeze you in at 10? Then I'll give us a good half hour to chat, and I can see you at 4:30, also for a half an hour.
What about me?
That's it, I'm sorry. I'm not in the habit of giving so many interviews. Why don't you go talk to Harris instead? Good day, gentlemen.
What in heaven's name is taking Frances so long? A simple trip to the pawn shop was all I asked her to do. Oh well, I can't wait any longer. I'll have to do without the jewels for the weekend. Oh, by the way, this also came in the mail. Probably the galleys for the Shaw book. Be sure to go through them carefully and make certain that the chapters read as though you wrote every sentence. Your style is most distinctive, you know. You'll be all right without me, won't you? It's only till Monday.
Yes, of course. Frances will be here. She'll see to it that I am warm.
Let her do some of the proofreading if your eyes get tired.
Goodbye, dear. Have a wonderful time at the party. Give everyone my regrets.
Nellie bends down to kiss old Frank and then exits.
You cried because her cheeks were cold, not because she was dead. Well, she's right at least about one thing.
What?
Your style. In life as well as in writing. Your style is most distinctive.
Remember how stilted your prose was when you first started writing for the London paper?
Hey, whatever happened to the Reverend John Verschoyle?
I don't know.
A good teacher in many ways.
Not as good as Byron Smith. Reverend Verschoyle frowned on your excesses in prose, and in the end, he condemned your excesses in other areas.
Reverend Verschoyle now emerges from the memory pool holding a manuscript.
Do you really want my criticism?
Yes. After living on the continent for 7 years, I find that I'm more at home in French and German than I am in English. Please show me how to improve my writing.
Very well. Your sentences are much too long. You use too many commas, and you do not strive for accuracy, expression. Look, here's one example. Why use the phrase preparatory exercise when the word prolusion exists and means exactly the same thing?
But who uses or even understands a word like prolusion?
Those who don't know the word can look it up in a dictionary. That's what dictionaries are for. Never forget, Frank, that one of your responsibilities as a writer is to keep the language alive and growing. If you and other writers merely write to be quickly understood, then perfectly good words like prolusion will soon die and be forgotten.
All right. You've made a convert. I'll rewrite the article with all your comments in mind.
By the way, are you free tonight? There is a special service at St. Marylebone, which might probably...
I can't. I'm taking Laura to the theater tonight.
Again? It must be getting very serious between you two.
Not her, just me. Oh, I am in love for the first time, on my knees in love, and yet she will not take me seriously. I've asked her to marry me, but she insists I have to make something of myself first. She gives me 3 years.
Meantime, she gives herself to you over and over, as though her body were not complete without yours in it.
3 years, 2 years, whatever. When the time comes, I shall be too happy to join the two of you in holy matrimony.
Laura, it's happened. It has finally happened. Where are you?
No, don't. It is too painful. Time has not yet healed that particular wound.
Such wounds do not heal with time. The memory of what I saw that day will go with you to your grave, and you better start.
Let's think of happier times. London in the 1880s, when you first took over the evening news, late nights in the newsroom, when you couldn't decide which headlines would sell more papers.
Laura is part of all those memories too.
We're now in a newspaper office with Middle Frank and reporters and Reverend Verschoyle.
I'm telling you, there's no way the evening news can compete with pictures and headlines like these.
Compete with filth, and you yourself become filth.
What's all this shouting?
Oh, one of your reporters has been studying the competition.
Coveting thy neighbor's ass, huh? Oh, don't you know we leave all such admonitions to my friend Oscar Wilde?
Look, Mr. Harris, just look. A story which we bury at the bottom of page 6 appears on the first pages of both these papers. Tell me honestly, if you were the average man in the street...
You're speaking to the wrong man. Frank is not the average man in the street.
I mean, would you buy our paper when all the newsboys are hawking headlines like these?
The evening news is bad enough without having to descend to the gutter.
Reverend Verschoyle, I hate to say it, but he's right.
For God's sake.
For our sake, Reverend Verschoyle, for our sake. God doesn't buy newspapers.
Frank, don't listen to
Quiet. Let me think.
It became clear to him that had he been editing the evening news the way a scholar might have, it was equally clear that nobody wanted the opinions of a 26-year-old man of the world.
All right. We'll change our whole editorial approach.
And so he decided to go backwards in time. He began to edit the paper as though he were 20, then 18, then 16.
We'll cater to the tastes of our readers.
Beauty and the Peer. Read all about it. Lord Garmoyle ruins young actress.
Bravo!
Frank, you
Bravo!
cannot let.
Man beats wife on Hog Street. Read all about it. Barroom brawl turns into tragedy.
When he finally descended to your tastes at 14, the evening news found its true market. Kissing and fighting were the only things you cared for when you were 14, and these are the only things people want to read in their newspapers.
Gross outrage on a female. Read all about it. Shocking assault on Piccadilly Circus.
Shocking is right.
You know where to find me when you come to your senses?
Frank, what happened to the man who told me about his meetings with Carlyle? What happened to all the promises you made?
Laura, the circulation of the paper is up from 7,000 to 70,000. It's making money for the first time in 4 years, and so am I. Another month or two, we can be married.
Oh? And how will your paper headline the event? Irish Buccaneer rescues American beauty from life of decency and respectability.
Be reasonable. The evening news.
A rag! The ink comes off and smears everything.
Laura, the base of even the highest pyramid rests on the ground in the mud. Believe in me, my darling. Together we'll lift the pyramid by putting our own breasts under it.
Your words are pretty. Too bad your newspaper isn't.
The evening news is only a stepping stone to bigger and better things. Don't you see that? Don't you think I know I'm meant for better things?
Then show me, Frank, show me. Until that happens, I do not wish to see you again.
Laura.
Goodbye, Frank.
So Laura was the reason why he resigned from the evening news?
Yes, and shortly after that, you met your first wife, Mrs. Emily Clayton, age 48.
We are now at a fashionable party in London in late 1890s, given by Mrs. Emily Clayton, a widow.
I was married to that? Oh, surely I could have done better. Even Miss Mayhew in Kansas was better than that.
That is a widow worth over 90,000 pounds. Also, after 3 decades of marriage to a man 38 years her senior, she plainly ripe for...
Mr. Harris?
Yes?
I was beginning to think you'd left the party without saying goodbye to anyone.
Oh no, Mrs. Clayton, I wouldn't do that. I was just...
Hiding from all the mothers with unmarried daughters? Aha, Mr. Harris, you must get used to that. Eligible young bachelors are a rarity in our circle. Tell me, how does it feel to be the most talked about man in London tonight?
Am I the most talked about man in London tonight?
Come, Mr. Harris. It's not every day a 30-year-old maverick gets appointed editor of the Fortnightly Review. And what do you think of our unmarried daughters? Some of them can be quite charming, I'm told.
I'm afraid I really do not care for young girls.
Oh?
Women are, in my opinion, like wine. Red Bordeaux is like the loyal wife, waffle wife, an excellent beverage that goes with every meal, always acceptable, but entirely unpredictable. If a man accustomed to Red Bordeaux wants something more exhilarating, chances are he'll turn to champagne. Champagne is like the woman of the streets, always within the reach, always the price is out of all proportion for its worth.
Please continue with your analogy. I find the conceit most stimulating.
Moselle is the girl of 14 to 18. Light, quick on the tongue, has little or no body. The memory of it is fleeting and fragile. Burgundy I think of as the woman of 30, more generous, more body, a perfume which lingers. And then we come to port, the woman of 40 or older, richer and sweeter than all the others, keeps excellently and ripens with age, but can only be drunk freely by youth. Yes, if One is young and vigorous. The best wine in the world is crusted port, half a century old.
And you, Mr. Harris, which of all these wines do you prefer?
It is port I am now drinking.
Ah, you were in your element then. Magnificent, just magnificent.
Mr. Harris, I have at home a very fine bottle of crusted port. I've been saving it since my husband died. If I give a small party Friday next and promise to let you sample the port, will you come?
Of course. I will be delighted.
Good. I shall send my carriage to fetch you. Where do you live?
23 Kensington Court.
Really? I expect you'll be moving to better quarters soon, now that you're the editor of the Fortnightly Review.
I don't know. I've grown rather fond of the place.
Until next Friday, then. Good night, Mr. Harris.
Why did you marry Mrs. Clayton if it was Laura you loved?
Who knows why? We do what we do in our youth. I married Emily because...
I once had political ambitions.
That's not the real reason, and you know it.
Help me pick these up, will you? Can't have the place looking like a pigsty when Francis returns from the pawn shop.
What is it? Another book?
This one will see me 1,000,000 copies.
But you didn't write it, did you? I never thought the day would come when you'd stoop to let anybody else write your books for you.
The door to the apartment opens and Mr. Scully slowly begins to enter. Ron, Mr. Scully begins to enter.
Mr. Harris?
Who are you? How'd you...
Come.
Mr. Scully, you will now enter the apartment.
My name is Scully.
Ron, enter the apartment.
Oh,
That's your place.
All right, so Mr. Scully now enters the apartment.
what about can you,
Mr.
Mr. Harris?
Who are you? How'd you...
Come. You don't want to see how you sunk from art to pornography and then to sheer bucksterism.
Shut the door, will you? I feel a draft.
My name is Scully.
We'll leave them to their skullduggeries.
Closing, I write for a newspaper in New York.
A journalist, huh? I was once a journalist myself. Edited 15 different publications at one time or another.
May I sit down? It wasn't easy climbing up the 6 flights of stairs to your apartment.
A young fellow like yourself, what'll you do when you're 75 and you've got phlebitis, neuralgia, rheumatism, bronchial asthma, and ulcers? If I can make it up and down those stairs without collapsing, then so can you.
Well, sir, it's obvious
I
that...
go to the Café de la Méditerranée for an aperitif every morning at 11:30, and every afternoon at 5, I go for a run. Can you run 100 yards in 14 seconds?
I'm afraid my running days are over. It's the leg, you know.
What's wrong with it?
Hunting accident last May. The wooden leg I only got 2 weeks ago.
Sit.
Damn thing will probably take a long time to get used to, but as soon as I'm able, I intend to return to South Africa and look in the bush for what's left of my right leg. Give it a proper burial.
I was in South Africa in 1896, covering the Jameson raid for the Saturday Review. 2 weeks in the jungle, eating all those poisonous berries, and my stomach was ruined forever. To this day, I have to watch my diet carefully. No bread or coffee, and absolutely nothing with butter. Also, I am never without my stomach pump.
He picks up his stomach pump to show him.
Whenever I feel I have eaten unwisely, I simply pour 2 quarts of water down the rubber tube, and voila! The old stomach rejects the undesirable food, and I'm all right again. Believe me, there's nothing like a good intestinal bath to wash out the digestive system and also to regulate the bowels.
The parties you and your wife used to give in London,
What about them?
There are people here in Nice who still talk about that.
That's because Frank Harris, Oscar Wilde, and George Bernard Shaw did all the talking. The guests hardly ever got in a word.
We now get a series of party scenes in London, 1890, in which we get Frank Harris, George Bernard Shaw, and Oscar Wilde in attendance, with Frank's wife taking care of everyone.
Yes, I read your last column. Wonderful. Are you planning to do a piece on Frank? Reverend Purcell, I am so pleased you can join us at our little soirees.
Oscar, I understand a publisher in America has offered you a large sum of money to write a book of 100,000 words.
Did you agree to it?
Oh, no, I couldn't. Even I do not know 100,000 different words in English.
Listening to you two, one gets the impression the word literature is always spelled with a capital L.
Isn't it?
Not since Shaw decided the secret to success is to write long prolusions explaining each and every one of his plays, so people in the theater no longer have to think for themselves.
That reminds me. The other day I saw a woman buying a hat, and I overheard her saying to her companion, how grand it is to have things to do that prevent one from thinking. Isn't that dreadful?
No. What is dreadful is how we all start out in life with little or no understandings of our bodies, our passions, and their after effects.
You should talk. Why, just yesterday, a certain actress told me you swore she wouldn't get pregnant if she used a ridiculous magic syringe you had given her.
You mean it didn't work?
She's now 3 months with child.
Who is this actress?
Her name was May Congdon. She used to sing in a music hall in London.
Frank, who is this actress?
No one you would know, dear. But it proves the very point I was trying to make. Women wouldn't be so gullible if the public schools would only teach their student bodies the ins and outs of everyday living.
I have the perfect solution. If you'll agree with me that 10 years of intimate intercourse with a man is what it takes to complete a woman's education, then what we really need are schools for the higher education of men and schools for the lower education of women.
Helen O'Hara appears at the party and Emily goes to her.
Helen O'Hara, what a pretty dress. Did your mother in Dublin make it for you? Be sure to take a good picture of Frank. He is going to run for Parliament, you know.
My wife tells me you mean to write The Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism. What, in your opinion, is the greatest obstacle to the emancipation of women?
Her lust, and this doesn't seem to diminish with age.
He's right. You yourself know there's nothing to match the first passion of a young man, except the last passion of an old woman.
I adore all women and their lust.
That, my dear Frank, will be your downfall.
I have never adored anyone except myself.
Be careful you do not do to excess. You know what they say about masturbation.
Frank, enough of such vulgarity.
Now you know why Frank Harris has been invited to all the best houses in London once.
One simply doesn't ask Frank to meet people at one's own home. The risk is too great. He always does the reverse of what one expects, especially at dinner. If you sit him next to the parson's wife, he will entertain her on the assumption that her personal morals are those of a prostitute. If, knowing this, you take care to sit him beside the most abandoned lady present, he will discourse to her on Jesus and the Bible.
There is no book more stimulating than the Bible. It begins with a naked couple in the garden and ends with further revelations.
Here is my favorite story from the Bible. When Joseph of Arimathea came down from Mount Calvary, where Jesus had died, he saw a beautiful young man weeping. And Joseph went near him and said, I understand how great thy grief must be. for certainly Jesus was a just man. The young man looked up and said, "Oh, sir, it is not for that I am weeping. I am weeping because I too have wrought miracles. I too have raised the dead. I too have turned water into wine, and yet they refuse to crucify me."
They will, Oscar, they will.
Yes, the parties were fun in the beginning. I lived with Emily on Park Lane, but I continued to keep my rooms at 23 Kensington Gore. I found it easier to work there.
Mr. Harris, do you know that your friend Oscar Wilde has a vile reputation?
Oscar is not a man of bad character. Why, you can trust him anywhere with a woman.
Strange things are said about him.
There's only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. What are they saying about me?
That you're now writing a romantic drama called The Bugger's Opera.
Whatever the disease may be, it's not catching, unfortunately.
Do you yourself speak from experience?
No, my dear man, I know nothing of the joys of homosexuality. And yet, if Shakespeare had asked me, I think I would have submitted.
Frank, tell our guests how you intend to run for Parliament as the Conservative candidate for South Hackney.
Oh yes. What do you think of Charles Fanel?
Great men, like kites, go up against the wind.
To say nothing of Miss Kitty O'Shea's petticoats.
What is all this talk about Kitty O'Shea? She's a woman, and she's tired of her husband. She has a lover, just like a lot of women in this room.
Everything went wrong that night. My remark about Kitty O'Shea killed all my chances for Parliament. And later that night,
Frank approaches Nellie O'Hara.
Is this your first visit to London? My wife said your mother used to be your housekeeper.
Many years ago, yes.
How old are you, girl?
Nearly 16, sir.
Ah, you remind me of my sister Nita. She too had beautiful hair. Someday I'll show you.
Frank,
Yes, my dear?
you dare to caress another before my very eyes?
I was just telling Miss O'Hara about a photograph I have of my sister.
The one you keep inside a red box with all your other precious belongings?
Why, yes. How did you know about the red box?
I was at 23 Kensington Gore this afternoon.
Really?
You think I don't know what goes on in those rooms? What kind of people you entertain in those rooms? Women of the streets? Maybe a man as well.
From this point on, we begin to hear Laura laughing in the background.
Don't say that. Don't ever accuse me of that.
So, why do you spring so readily to the defense of Oscar Wilde?
Oscar is a friend.
And the young man whose picture you keep with those of your family, is he a friend too?
That man is Byron Smith. He was my professor at the University of Kansas, and that picture is one of my most treasured possessions.
Not anymore, it isn't. I went through the red box this afternoon, and...
No, don't, Laura.
I destroyed everything. Pictures, everything.
What?
The love letters from someone named Laura, I burned. And scattered the ashes out of the window. The pictures of your professor, I cut into little pieces.
Come, we're leaving.
But where are we going?
The Cafe Royal. We'll take a private room.
Frank!
I lied to you, Emily. I don't really like crusted port. I have always preferred Moselle. The younger, the better. Come, before I start undressing you in front of my wife.
I rushed away with Nellie the same way I rushed into marriage with Emily, in white heat and anger. With the memory of Laura's body still boiling in me like a fever.
Exactly what did Laura do to you?
Everything and nothing.
I don't understand.
Ah, Mr. Scully, the woman a man loves is the ideal in himself. To find fault, therefore, with the woman one loves is to blame oneself.
Nellie, wait. You're bleeding. I didn't know you were, I didn't mean to hurt you.
The photograph of Byron Smith that your wife destroyed.
An irreparable loss, because it was the only one of him I ever had. You see, Mr. Scully, the soul of life to me is not my love of women, but rather my admiration of great men. And Byron Smith was the greatest of them all.
Greater even than Churchill or Cecil Rhodes?
Yes, far greater. Kings and cowboys I have known, but it is Byron Smith who stands out above the rest. Here I am 6,000 miles and nearly 60 years away from Kansas. And yet the moments I spent with Byron Smith still seem nearer to me than this morning's newspaper. Byron was only 23 when I first knew him. Only 6 years older than myself, but he was destined to reshape my life and inspire it with some of his own high purpose. He was to me the most wonderful creature in this strange, sunlit world. He seemed to know everything.
Lights up on the Free Congregational Church in Lawrence. It is mid-1860s. Byron Smith is addressing the crowd in the church.
Jimmy, what is the meaning of this? I asked to spend a few quiet moments with you, and you dragged me to the Free Congregational Church.
Shh! What good is Christianity, I ask you? Until one realizes the shortcomings of Jesus, it is impossible to understand him or take the beauty of his works to heart. Today, unlike yesterday, more faith in the ends of God are necessary than when the world was explained so easily by our priests. That is what I say with enthusiasm of growth, and culture must now be raised to moral dogma. Christ is our teacher, yes, but so also are Buddha, Plato, Dante, Shakespeare, Marx. Each one contributes towards the humanization of man. The worst fault in our civilization is that it holds up one prize before all of us, riches. But many of us do not want wealth. Some of us are born students and want to give our lives to the advancement of knowledge. Do not the brain and heart have their own rights? Why should they be forced to serve only the belly and the groin?
Quiet!
Let him speak.
He has a right to speak.
Jimmy, let's go.
No,
First, said Christ on the cross, only I seem to understand that it was knowledge for which he thirsted. Knowledge and experience of everything that is human and more.
Don't leave, you don't understand.
The same speech delivered today would raise very few eyebrows, but back in 1874 in Kansas, it was incendiary. Kate Stevens and I actually feared for the professor's life.
Kate Stevens?
The daughter of one of the town elders. She and Byron Smith were engaged to be married.
Thank you both for coming and staying.
Oh, Byron, if the townspeople realize that you are convinced Christianity is doing more harm than good, they wouldn't want you teaching in their university. Don't you know that?
Kate, I myself was not brought up in any creed, so I find it hard to understand such intolerant bigotry. What am I to do, play hypocrite because these people are blind fanatics?
No, never. What are universities for if not professors?
It's in the statutes of the university that there should be no religious teaching of any kind, for or against, in the classroom.
And yet each sect seems to have its own professor on the hill. History gets an Episcopalian clergyman who knows no history. Latin has a Baptist who, when you greet him in Latin, can only blush and beg not to be exposed in his shameful ignorance. The lady who teaches Shakespeare is a joke, but she is, I believe, a good Methodist. So what do we have? Education degraded by the sectarian jealousness of farmers.
We must all raise more hell and less corn.
Jimmy, this is no joking matter. Besides, you aren't even a student at the university.
Not yet, but he will be.
Do you think I have it in me to be a scholar?
You are inclined to underrate yourself, Jimmy. You have a fine mind, and whatever you decide to do, you will surely accomplish.
Will you let me study with you if I enroll at the university?
Why not? You and Kate will be my best students.
What about my records and certificates? They're all in Ireland.
I'll speak to Chancellor Marvin myself, get you accepted as a special student. How do you wish to have your name entered in the registrar's book? Jimmy or James?
Neither. If I am to start a new life, I want to have a new name to go with it. How about Frank?
Francis Harris.
No, just Frank. From this day on, I shall be Frank by name and also Frank by nature. I shall go this very minute to my brother and tell him to dissolve our partnership. I'll have to buy books, lots of books, and also some new clothes. William, it's me, Frank. I want my $2,000 back.
William lost every penny I lent him at the casino. In the end, I had to sell all my butcher's equipment for less than $50 in order to pay for my books and tuition. It was Byron Smith who taught me the true meaning of art and literature, the value in life of what endures. Suddenly, in the wheat fields of Kansas, I was discovering Greece and Rome and Babylon. Like a goat, I bounded from mountaintop to mountaintop, but never very far away from my professor. We even lived together for a while.
Lies, lies, all lies.
The ex-cowboy and the professor, what a pair we were.
Frank Harris lies about his relationship with Byron Smith.
In life, the only person who ever came between us was Kate Stevens. Sometimes at night, we would wander up the hill to sit on the roof of Fraser Hall and watch all of Kansas sleeping. Even today, the top of Fraser Hall is still the highest point in Kansas, which isn't saying much, I suppose. 6 feet under the ground is considered by some to be a high point in Kansas. Forgive me. At my age, everything reminds me of death. Lately, my eyes get blurred very quickly with reading, and above all, my loss of memory is a curse to me. I cannot seem to remember names anymore. Faces, too. They flash in and out, and sometimes entire days go by when I can no longer... But I'm wondering, what were we talking about?
You and Byron Smith sitting on top of the wall.
Yes, Byron Smith. He was dismissed by the university in 1875. Moral turpitude, they said, and it broke his health. He went to Philadelphia for a while, then to Colorado, where he finally died of consumption. He was only 27 years old.
He dies again and again every time Frank Harris mentions his name.
In life, the only person who ever came between us was Kate Stevens.
Lights up on Byron Smith and young Kate Stevens on top of Old Fraser Hall on the KU campus.
Frank and I come up here sometimes.
I wish you wouldn't spend so much time with Jimmy. You know I do not like him.
Why not? Frank works hard and his mind absorbs things like a sponge.
He looks so scruffy, and he follows you around like a...
Byron!
There, just like a dog.
Byron, are you up there?
Yes. Kate and I were just talking about you. Why don't you come on up and join us?
Do you know what he did in Professor Snow's class the other day? He turned in an essay describing the mating habits of jayhawks.
But the jayhawk is a mythical bird.
That's what Professor Snow said. And then Jimmy made everyone laugh by insisting his essay was really about the perpetuation of myths.
Byron, do you know what book I found in the library this afternoon?
It's so pretty up here at night. Oh, look, isn't that the Eldridge Hotel?
Yes, and over there is where Byron and I usually...
I think we'd better go. It's getting chilly up here.
Byron, there is this edition of Othello. I'd like you to...
Frank, would you believe that art and literature are no longer the supreme objects of my desire? It's true. I now see in Kate's form more grace and beauty than all the angels of Fra Angelico. I hear in her conversations more wisdom and eloquence than in all the speeches of Shakespeare, and in her laughter more magic and enchantment than all the songs of Schubert. Someday, Frank, you too will find a woman like Kate.
I did. Her name was...
Laura, it's happened. It has finally happened.
You'll want to spend the rest of your life with her, and then you'll...
Be sorry.
What happened to your wife after you left her?
Emily? She refused to give me a divorce and continued to give her parties on Park Lane as though nothing had happened. Every year at Christmas, she'd send me a bottle of cheap champagne. I suppose it was her way of reminding me what she thought of Nellie.
Frank, she's dead.
Who?
Emily. Who else? A telegram just arrived.
Well, well, well.
She died in her sleep last night.
It's about time. The old witch was 89 years old.
Now you and I can be married.
Married?
At your age?
Nellie, are you serious?
Of course I'm serious. For 33 years I've thought of nothing else. Quick, get dressed. We'll all go to the Café del Mediterranean to celebrate.
Champagne. It's been a long time since we've had champagne.
What shall I wear?
What's wrong with what you have on?
I don't mean now, silly. I meant for the wedding. I'll have to have a new gown.
Oh, Nellie.
Surely you don't expect me to get married in an old dress.
It's not that I do not want you to look nice always, but you tend to...
Yes?
You tend to overdo things. Remember all the singing lessons you had to have from only the best teachers in Europe and America? All the crystal and china you bought, even though we cannot afford to give parties anymore? And what about the lavish presents you keep sending your family and friends in Ireland, some of whom you haven't seen in years?
Well, I only do these things because my mother thinks we've been married all these years. You say we're poor, but you don't know what poor is. You who sit every morning at some sidewalk cafe sipping your Pernod, you who take taxi rides to Monte Carlo and back, every time your artistic soul hungers for a different view of the Mediterranean. When I was small, I used to wake up in the morning and see my mother crying in the kitchen because there was no food for the family. That's what poor is. For many years, I went to school wearing the same coat, mended 100 times until it could not be mended no more. That is what poor is. And when I finally grew up and saw in the mirror that I was pretty, I smiled and said to myself, we will never be poor again. Oh, Frank, don't you understand? I want my mother to think I married well. I would have to if you had not snatched me from that awful party and...
No, not the sterling silver. It was a gift from the Prince of Wales.
Here, take this. You should get 30,000 francs for it at least. Go and buy yourself the most beautiful wedding gown on the Riviera.
Will you come and help me pick out the gown?
No, you do it. I want to be surprised.
And afterwards, shall we celebrate?
If you wish.
Frank,
Yes.
I love you.
One kiss for 96 pieces of silver.
Byron Smith settled for less with Kate Stevens.
I'll meet you at the cafe in 1 hour.
4 years later, and the silver is still at the pawn shop. Oh, Mr. Scully, I am not used to this poverty, and really, I am not a spendthrift. I want little, just enough for bare necessities so I can finish my work. My autobiography would sell if only people knew where to buy them. If only they weren't seized and confiscated everywhere. If only there were some way of showing the world that they are art and not pornography.
Open up, police.
I once earned $10,000 a year just from the sale of my early books, the short stories and the novels. But the publication of My Life and Loves has cut this income down to nearly nothing.
Oh, I never thought the world would be so remorseless against me for merely telling the truth about myself. The truth, if you will, about men and women and all the things we do to each other in the name of love.
Haven't your friends come to your help?
What friends?
There's always Kate Stevens. She's still alive.
The good ones are dead, all dead.
What about Shaw?
What about him?
He's here in Nice right now.
Yes, I know.
He's coming to see you tomorrow morning. Why don't you ask him for...
Alone? Ha! It's obvious you don't know the man. Don't think I haven't asked him, Mr. Scully, many times.
And?
Nothing. Not a penny. After all I've done for him, too.
Who remembers the past?
Shaw is somewhat overrated, don't you think?
Ah, yes. But he is also very shrewd. I know of no other man living or dead who has made a capitalist fortune out of being a socialist. Consider what things Shaw has been for and against, some of them at the same time, and you will know just how shrewd he is.
And you?
Read my autobiography, Mr. Scully, all 1,544 pages of it, and you will know exactly where I stand on every issue.
India,
Ireland,
South Africa,
Germany. I defended each one against England, even when money and reward were clearly on the other side. I have convictions to satisfy, Mr. Scully, not selfishness. In my estimation, no art has any value whatever unless it is sincere.
Oh, Frank, Byron Smith would have been proud of you for saying that.
Your true opinions of Shaw, are they all in here?
Some, not all. I never suspected people would find the old windbag so fascinating when I was writing my autobiography.
Then why not write the book now and solve all of your problems? Harris versus Shaw. Such a book would sell 1 million copies.
Are you serious?
Simon & Schuster will turn cartwheels for you if you agree to write a book on Shaw as only you can. Look, why not let me place a call to Max Schuster? Both he and Dick Simon are...
No, Mr. Scully.
Why not?
Look, I am 75 years old. What time I have left is limited, and I must use it wisely. A book on Jesus, perhaps, but not on Shaw.
Well then, will you at least let me buy these books from you?
No, keep them. A gift from one writer to another.
What? And he dares to complain about being poor?
Let me pull out my checkbook, please. They'll mean much more to me if you'll allow me to pay for them.
Very well. For Nellie's sake, I accept your very kind offer.
How much?
$100.
$100?
First edition, Mr. Scully, privately printed in France and Germany, each copy personally inspected and signed by the author.
Scully hands him a check.
Every word as I wrote it, complete and unexpurgated. You get the seamy sex as well as the lofty ideas.
Good. I'm looking forward to reading all of it.
Mr. Scully, about the book you propose.
Yes?
I wish we had met 5 years ago and that you had suggested the idea then. My memory now is so poor that I...
Why don't I just leave you my card? If you ever change your mind about the book, I shall be happy to work with you on it.
Thank you very much, but...
Will you at least think about it?
All right, but don't get your hopes up.
Goodbye, Mr. Harris.
And watch those steps on the way down. We're not insured for accidents.
We now get another party scene where we see a masked man with Laura, who both enter with masks. The masked man is a stranger.
Laura? Frank, it's a wonderful party, but where is your mask? Here, take mine. I've got an extra one.
Laura, why do you tease and torture me with doubt? I cannot do my work because I'm always wondering whether or not you care for me.
The child is ugly. Compared to others, this one is ugly.
Well, are you ready?
For what?
The wedding. What else?
Who'd want to marry anyone with a face like that?
At the American Church. Everyone will be there.
Laura, it's happened. It has finally happened.
John?
Beg your pardon?
It's me, Frank. Don't you recognize me?
There must be a mistake.
Why didn't you tell me Reverend Verschoyle was here in Nice?
Frank, it isn't Reverend Verschoyle. Reverend Verschoyle is dead.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join in holy matrimony this man and this
Laura?
woman. Do you, Helen O'Hara, take this man for thy lawfully wedded husband?
Where are you? Upstairs?
Priest. Oh. And you, Frank Harris, do you take this woman?
Laura, you'll never guess what.
Little Frank discovers Laura and the masked man having sex. Little Frank freezes at the sight. Laura breaks out in laughter.
I do.
Lights off and the back one. Okay, Act 2 is a few moments later. Lights up on old Frank and young Frank cleaning up the apartment, picking up the galleys from the floor.
This book on Shaw.
Yes?
Why did you agree to do it?
The same reason why I decided to write the autobiography. For Nellie. We were both hired to be who? Oh, don't look at me like that. You're young and idealistic. You had yet to shake off the Kansas dirt from your shoes.
What do you mean?
You're still full of that crap Byron Smith crammed into you.
Don't say that about him. Don't ever.
Father!
Okay, they're interrupted by Frank's illegitimate daughter by May Congdon. And Frances Congdon now enters the apartment.
Where's Nellie? I got her.
She left about an hour ago.
Oh, was she angry that I took so long?
Oh, no, not at all.
I decided to stop at the market on the way home. I've got the diamonds right here next to the cheese and eggs.
Shut the door, will you? I feel a draft.
What should I do about these?
She's carrying the box that Nellie took to the pawn shop in Act 1, and also a basket containing groceries and a jewelry case.
Let me take that. The sterling goes here, and Nellie's jewelry we might as well keep in here too.
Isn't this...
She goes over to the trunk and she recognizes an old theatrical-looking gown, circa 1898, the kind a singer in a music hall might wear.
I've seen photographs of her in it.
It's really remarkable how much you resemble your mother. If only you'd wear your hair differently. There, like that. She always wore her hair like that. You're about the same size, too.
Yes.
Put on the gown.
Oh, Father.
Go on, make an old man happy. Do you know the old Irish song she used to sing?
Which one?
One morning, one morning, one morning.
That was her favorite.
That and all other songs which mention the month of May.
Well, how do I look?
Oh, Frances, you are made to the life. It is enough to make me feel young again.
Isn't she delicious?
We are now in a music hall in London, 1890, with Little Frank, Shaw, and Wilde.
Scrumptious.
One morning in May, I spotted a fine couple a-making their way, and one was a lady, and so trim and so far, the other a soldier, a brave volunteer. One morning to thee, oh, where are you going, my pretty lady? I'm going for a walk on the banks of the streams to see waters a-gliding and hear nightingales sing. Well, they have not been there but an hour or two when out of his knapsack a fiddle he drew, and the song that he played made the mountains all sing. Oh, hark, said the lady, even nightingales sing. Oh, pretty lady, come sit on my knee. Oh no, pretty soldier, you'll fiddle with me. Pretty soldier, won't you marry me? Oh no, pretty lady, that never can be. I've a wife in London and 2 children times 3. 2 wives in the army is too many for me. Well, I'm going back to London to live there 1 year, and I'll think of you often, my little dear. And if ever I return, it will be in the spring, to see waters a-gliding and hear nightingales sing.
Remember Nita's advice. Pretty lady, have supper with me. She's half naked in her dressing room, and you ask her to have supper? Quick, tell her how special she is.
Miss Condon, perhaps you know me. My name is Frank Harris.
In the flesh.
I edit the Saturday Review, and I'd like to do a feature on you. Front page with pictures. All London will worship your talents.
Oh, he was a rascal.
Who?
Someone I used to know.
Mother never married. She kept hoping you would come and live with us.
It wasn't possible.
I was still married to Emily, and Nellie was already living with me.
I did what I could. I wrote and sent money.
Irregularly, when I was a child. And then we stopped hearing from you completely.
It was a very difficult period in my life. I had just invested all my money in a project in Monte Carlo. Now that you are here with us, you can see for yourself how we live.
I brought some food on the way back. The cheese looks very good. Shall I make you a quiche Lorraine?
Oh, that'll be nice. We haven't had quiche for a long time.
We used to have it every day with champagne.
But don't put too much bacon in it. The stomach, you know.
She exits with the basket.
Gone are the days when we could eat with impunity.
What was it Oscar Wilde had to say about food?
Be careful what you put in your mouth. You don't know where it's been.
No, that was Mrs. Maiden. Oscar used to say, there are only 2 pleasures in life, sex and food. And of the 2, food is greater.
Why?
When sex is gone, there's still food.
Poor Oscar. Remember the conversation you had with him the night before he was sentenced?
To this day, I don't know why he refused to flee.
Perhaps he wasn't the running sort. I knew men like that in the American West.
It was sometime in 1891 that Oscar first met Lord Alfred Douglas. I myself did not understand the nature of their relationship until it was too late.
Lights up on Frank Harris and Oscar Wilde standing on what is now a bridge overlooking the Thames.
Oscar, there's no way you can win this case. Public sympathy is with the Marquis of Queensberry. He says you have corrupted his son. No jury would give a verdict against the father.
The Marquis of Queensberry is an idiot. How can anyone believe what he says?
The English distrust the intellect. They prefer to accept idiotic conventions.
You are wrong. Tomorrow morning at the Old Bailey, you will see how wrong you are.
No, you cannot afford to show up in court tomorrow. You must get away now, while there is still time. Oscar, listen to me. There is a little landing place on the Thames not far from here. I've rented a steam yacht, captain and crew, ready to start at a moment's notice. If we leave now, we could be in France by morning. Come on, we must hurry.
How wonderful, but how impossible.
No, not impossible. Do you see those lights across the bridge? That's my carriage waiting with a pair of fast horses. It will take us to the yacht before anyone realizes that you are...
Sir Oscar Wilde, this is the worst case I have ever tried. That you, Wilde, have been the center of a circle of extensive corruption of the most hideous kind among young men. It is impossible to doubt. The sentence of this court is that you be imprisoned and kept to hard labor for 2 years.
The applause from the crowd was shocking. A sad day for artists indeed. 18 years later, you were to suffer a similar fate.
I was in prison?
Yes.
For what?
Your Lordship, I wasn't even in London at the time this article appeared.
You are the editor of the weekly paper called Modern Society, are you not?
Yes, but I did not write the article which the prosecution claims is libelous.
Is not the editor responsible for all the things that appear in this publication?
What do you propose to do next? Throw an editor in jail every time a typographical error appears in his paper?
Mr. Harris, one more remark like that and I shall charge you with contempt of court.
That charge I will not protest.
Silence in the court, silence!
I am under oath, and I cannot lie. I feel nothing but contempt for you and your court.
Silence! Frank Harris, this court finds your behavior abominable. Unless you apologize immediately.
Never.
Very well. You give the court no choice. We hereby find you guilty of contempt of court. You will be committed to Brixton Prison until we are entirely satisfied that you have been purged of your contempt.
How long was I in prison?
Long enough to see how all prisons are designed to destroy the spirit. Poor Oscar. He was in for 2 years. 2 weeks was all I could stomach.
You did apologize.
Oh, no.
Well, then how did you...
The food. I fell ill almost immediately from the food, and Nellie managed to get the press to come to my rescue. The same English public that had clamored for the crucifixion of Oscar now demanded my pardon.
And so, at age 58, with hardly any money in my pocket, I packed my bags and sailed once more for America.
The Statue of Liberty and Brooklyn Bridge. Did you ever drive across the bridge and think about the work I did at the bottom of the river?
Many times.
For what he turned out to be, you might as well have stayed at the bottom of the river.
Oh, don't listen to him. You didn't turn out so badly. How many boys who went to school in Kansas got to know writers like Shaw and Wilde and H.G. Wells? Artists like Beardsley and Rodin and Max Beerbohm?
The telephone starts to ring.
How many men can tell their grandchildren that they knew Edward VII when he was only the Prince of Wales? Princess Alice of Monaco when she was only Alice Heine from New Orleans? Charlie Chaplin when he was already Charlie Chaplin?
Father, the telephone. Do you want me to answer it?
No, I've got it. Hello. Oh, it's you, Scully.
Ah, the young man wants us 30% of all the advances on the book.
Yes, the galleys arrived this morning. I was just getting ready to...
Scully's share comes to $2,500, but Nellie has already spent the money.
What? Oh, yes, everything's under control. The money came and your share is already in the mail to you.
Oh, that's clever. You can then claim it was lost in the mail.
How's the leg? Oh, that's too bad. Well, don't worry about the money. You'll be getting it in a day or two.
Ah!
Yes, you too. Give my love to your wife. What are we going to do about the money we owe him?
We? Did you say we? Don't forget I was against the book right from the beginning.
The door opens and Bernard Shaw now enters the apartment.
Frank, you old devil.
Ah, the proverbial Shaw must go on.
Shaw now.
You said 10:30. You're late.
I was being interviewed and couldn't get away. I saw Nellie briefly on the way in. Is it true you finally married her?
Why not? She takes good care of me.
Oh, God.
When was the last time I saw you? New York, wasn't it? Before you wrote your wretched autobiography? How are you?
Not good, not bad. Better in any case than the way you look.
Oh, how do I look?
White, practically bald, and thin as a rail.
What? You must be blind. My complexion is the admiration of Europe. I haven't a bald spot in my dome. And my thinness is a quality, not a fault.
He looks undersexed to me.
Which reminds me, I wish you wouldn't go around telling people I'm undersexed.
I never said that.
You did too. A lecture you gave in Berlin last winter. My spies are everywhere.
Well, if I did, it's true. You are undersexed.
I'm not either. If anything, I'm oversexed.
Ha! You oversexed? What, you yourself told me that you came to London when you were 19 and you did not have any sexual encounters until you were 29?
10 years.
If it had been Shakespeare, it would have been 10 months. If it had been Frank Harris, it would have been 10 days or 10 hours. You oversexed, my God.
Ah, but then you and Shakespeare had not been brought up on great art and music. Handel, Mozart, Michelangelo, and Greek sculpture, the way I was. If your sense of beauty had been properly nursed, you could not have touched anything so prosaic as a real woman before you were 29.
But I know Greek sculpture as well as you do, maybe even better. Look who shares this bedroom with me, who watches me at night like a mother. The Venus de Milo, no less.
Anything less, and there would be little left to see. Also, with both her arms gone, the breasts are unduly prominent.
What's wrong with that?
I think her breasts are lovely.
You would. The Malian Aphrodite is exactly like all the women you write about.
Explain that statement.
Gladly. You give your women no minds or souls, not even arms and legs. Just breasts and vaginas and assorted orifices.
What about your women? They all lack divinity and grace, mystery and charm, allure. Their bodies are as dry and hard as their minds, and even when they run after their men, the pursuit has about as much sex appeal as a timetable.
Where are the Noras and the Hedders in your plays?
Yours are the sexless dolls which Ibsen threw out of the doll's house.
Why not also blame me for the current femininity in men and virility in women?
Any attempt to destroy the womanly woman can only succeed in equally destroying the manly man.
Frank, why must the human race consist entirely of Frank Harrises and women of the sort you idealize? Don't you realize that there's only one Frank Harris in the world, and that the sort of woman you idealize never completely existed, except in your imagination?
I tried in my autobiography to show women as creatures with sexual passions just like men.
The fleshly school of art, my dear Frank, is the consolation of the impotent.
Oh, then why are masturbating schoolboys its greatest patrons?
I know nothing of masturbating schoolboys. They do not soil my books the way they do yours.
What a pity. The whole world would be far happier today had less blood and more semen been spilled between 1914 and 1918.
Why are we bickering? I came to praise Harris, not to bury him.
Oh, he dares to quote Shakespeare to you. You who wrote the book on Shakespeare.
Although I do not care for your book on Shakespeare, I do admire your biography of Oscar Wilde. Was his treatment at Reading Gaol really as bad as you described it?
Yes.
Poor fellow. But then he dug his own grave, didn't he?
The fault, dear Shaw, is not in ourselves, but in our stars.
Oscar should have taken my advice and fled from England when he had the chance.
Where were you when I tried to get his friends to sign a petition for his release?
What did you do with him? the whole time he was here in Nice.
There was little I could do. His experience in prison was always too much with him.
Lights up back to 1900 when Oscar Wilde was staying with Frank Harris for a few months in Nice. Frank Harris is upstairs in the apartment working on his book.
The history of Shakespeare's soul is the story of his mistakes with women. His marriage to a woman nearly 8 years his senior is perhaps the first mistake he ever made.
Frank Harris is upstairs thinking at the top of his lungs about his beloved Shakespeare.
By the time he met Mary Fitton, Shakespeare had forgotten that humble worship was not the way to win a high-spirited girl. He loved her so abjectly that he...
I am thinking of writing a story called The Silence of Frank Harris. When Frank talks of literature, he amuses me. He pretends to bring new standards to it. This he does by bringing Kansas to judge Oxford and Cambridge. Isn't that ridiculous? How can someone who went to school in Kansas know anything about English literature?
Oscar, it's only 9 in the morning and already you are drinking.
Absinthe is good at any o'clock. It is to all other drinks what Michelangelo's David is to all other pieces of marble. It stands alone. It is like nothing else. It shimmers against the light, any light, and it has about it the seduction of strange songs.
I give you money for groceries and you buy absinthe.
Give me the luxuries, Frank. Anyone can have the necessaries.
Oscar, I do not mind feeding you or giving you money for the boys you entertain. I hope always to be your friend, but even the most patient of men grows tired of holding up an empty sack.
Frank, you insult me.
I don't mean to. I'm sorry. But you cannot go on drinking like this.
Indulgence may hurt the body, Frank, but nothing except suffering hurts the spirit.
Work. There is nothing like work to cure the spirit. Why don't you work on a new play?
Why should I write any more? I have done enough for fame.
For money, then. Your punishment has made your name known in every country in the world, and a new play by you would bring in more money than you ever had.
I cannot.
Nonsense.
It is harder than you think.
Why not make the effort?
I take up my pen, and the past comes rushing back. As soon as I am alone in my room, the Oscar of 5 years ago appears before me with his beautiful life, his easy triumphs, and suddenly my eyes are burning with tears.
I'm the same way, but one mustn't give in to regret and to remorse.
If you care for me, Frank, you will not ask me to write. I was born to sing the songs of joy and laughter, the pleasure of living, the delight in life of everything that is beautiful, but they put me in prison.
Oscar, you and I are victims of the same society, the same prejudices and hostilities. I choose to start a new life, and so must you.
You would turn all the tragedies into triumphs. You are a born fighter.
And so are you.
No. You and I are different that way. You are a man of dominant personality. You require response or you annihilate. I remember your parties at Park Lane. Often the remains of your guests were taken away with the debris of the feast. Often I found myself the only survivor.
Then be a survivor now.
Why must you insist on my being always at high intellectual pressure? It is most exhausting. It's time I broke the news to you, Frank. I have softening of the brain and cannot always be a genius.
The two of you must have made a fine pair on the Riviera.
Why?
No two people are more opposite than you and he. Wilde was a conventional man. His unconventionality was the very pedantry of convention.
How can you say that and still claim you admire my biography of him?
There's the rub. The biography is extraordinary. Through you, Wilde lives and breathes. How you did it, I don't know.
Life needs reporters and seeks them everywhere. The only question that plagues the artist is when and how far he should sacrifice truth to beauty, the real to the ideal, the actual to the imagined.
How would you handle me if I were the subject of one of your biographies?
I would first of all have to have an understanding of your success and your priorities. You are that miracle of miracles, a writer who has made plenty of money and saved it.
You greatly exaggerate my wealth. Charlotte and I are comfortable, and we keep 2 cars, but really, we have not a penny to spare.
Yes, I know.
As a matter of fact, I'm losing money every minute I spend talking to you. I could be calling my publisher right now and getting at least $50,000 for the promise of a new play.
Then you must stop talking to me at once.
Whoa. I did not mean it to sound like that.
Perhaps you ought to go back to your hotel and write another play, one wherein all the coy Victorian ladies again say no, when they really mean yes.
Definitely you bring us back to the tedious subject of sex. Frank, you have, on a number of occasions, asked me to lend you money, and I have always
refused.
Every time I relieve people financially, I end up hating them as heartily as they hate me.
Why do you bring up the subject at all? It's been a long time since I've asked you for it.
Because I'm greatly troubled by all the stories I hear about the way you and Nellie live. I now think it is only fair that I should pay you back a part of what you helped me earn at the Saturday Review. What I'm proposing, Frank, is not an outright gift or loan. That would go against all my principles. What I'm wondering is
yes,
whether or not you would have any interest in writing a biography of...
You?
Yes.
Harris versus Shaw. Such a book would sell 1 million copies.
It has to be unauthorized because Henderson's 2-volume biography already is my imprimatur. But I will do everything in my power to give you the sort of information you need for your version.
Including your sex credo?
That too, if you wish, but you will be disappointed with it.
Why?
What people call love, I think, is impossible except as a joke. In permanence and seriousness, my consummated love affairs count for nothing beside the ones that were unconsummated.
What does your unfortunate wife think of all this?
She doesn't. You forget that all marriages are different.
How different can they be? People marry for love, sometimes for money.
I married Charlotte, not for love or for money, but because we had become indispensable to one another.
Ah, you're all common sense. You think more of a drain pipe than a cathedral. You claim to admire Plato, but you yourself are only a plumber philosopher.
Say that in the book if you like. I won't object. And now I must go. Charlotte asked me to meet her at noon, and I don't want to be late.
Why didn't she come with you? Nellie would have enjoyed.
My wife loathes your autobiography and thinks me a fool for wanting to help you. Frank, you are personally capable of writing a worthy successor to the Wilde biography. That is the sort of thing you can do. And if you do it in your best manner, your abominable life and loves will be forgiven and forgotten.
My life and loves will live as long as Shakespeare and the English language remain Baudelairized, as long as men and women need to free themselves from the sexual prisons that society, thanks to the church, has placed them in.
Write the biography, Frank. You will die in the odor of sanctity, even if you persist in calling it the stink of respectability.
Why don't I leave you my card? If you ever change your mind about the book...
All right, but I must have your sex credo.
Agreed. You'll have it by tomorrow morning. Goodbye, Frank.
Shaw exits.
Scully's card. What did I do with it? I must call him immediately. The book will sell 1 million copies. Nellie, we'll be rich again. Nellie, do you hear me? We'll be rich again.
Francis
Nellie!
Congdon enters carrying a tray of food.
Father, why are you calling for Nellie?
Where is she? I have wonderful news for...
Nellie's away for the weekend. The party at the Crouches.
I know. Isn't she back yet?
She left only a few hours ago.
Oh.
Father, are you all right?
Yes, of course. I started to work on the galleys and forgot for a moment where I was. I'm sorry I frightened you. Oh, the quiche looks good. You know what? The best quiche I've ever had was not in Lorraine, but in Monte Carlo. Princess Alice of Monaco. Now there is someone who knows how to give parties. She always had the best food, the best wine, the best people.
Flash back to a party scene with Edward VII, the Prince of Wales, and Princess Alice of Monaco.
The Prince of Wales was only one of the people she collected. Edward the Caresser, all the women called him.
What was he really like?
Very continental, but also not very bright. It always took him a few seconds longer than anyone to catch a joke.
Frank, will you watch Edward for a while? Make sure he doesn't pinch the Baroness again. She blushed so red this time, I thought she was going to faint.
A royal flush, no doubt. Sir, where did you poke her?
Actually, if you want my opinion, I think the Baroness deserves a hand of applause. That is, for weathering such hijinks so graciously.
Prince of Wales.
Who's Prince of Wales? Somebody in Prince of Wales, so I can...
Richard.
Rich? Oh, it's not Mark Purcell.
Yeah, one of my...
A royal flush after I poked her? Ha, 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 that's very good.
Yes, why don't you entertain His Royal Highness with some of your stories while I go look after my other guests?
Oh, do. Please do. I love a good story.
All right. This one may amuse you. I gave a lecture recently at one of the clubs. At the end of the talk, a man in the audience raised his hand and said rather facetiously, "The lecturer spoke of virgin once or twice. Would he be kind enough to tell us just what he means by virgin?" "Certainly," I replied. "The meaning is plain. Vir, as everyone knows, is Latin for a man, while gin is good old English for a trap. A virgin, therefore, is nothing but a man trap."
I was never very good at Latin. Almost awful declensions.
Some people are in a better position than others to decline any manner of higher learning.
Tell me, do you know any naughty limericks?
Why, yes. I heard this one just yesterday. "Here's to the game of 20 toes. It's known all over the town. The girls play it with 10 toes up and the boys with 10 toes down."
Oh, that's good. I like that. Tell me another.
"There was a young lady at sea who said, 'God, how it hurts me to pee.' 'I see,' said the mate. 'That accounts for the state of the captain, the purser, and me.'"
What was wrong with the young lady?
Frank, where is your adorable wife?
If it is Nellie you're referring to, 1, she is not always adorable, and 2, she is not yet my wife, and 3, she is not here because she's in Paris, taking voice lessons with a man who claims he can teach even frogs to sing.
Frank, you rascal. I've been looking for you everywhere.
Did you look under your bed?
Under my bed? That was very funny.
Yes, you must be sure to tell that one to your wife.
I will.
Sir, do you realize that there are 3 categories of women?
3?
I thought you said all women were inscrutable.
There are those who, like Princess Alice, love with the head, and then those who love with the heart, and finally those who are ruled in love as in life by the senses. The senses intoxicated and intoxicating, like good wine.
This is my favorite wine.
The milk diversions, yes. I cannot begin to tell you how.
No more for Mr. Harris tonight.
My prince, have you ever wondered why 100 organs are given to man for pain and only 1 for pleasure? Man has over 30 feet of small and large intestines, all for suffering, and only 6 or 7 inches.
Frank, let me tell a story, one which my mother was fond of telling when I was a little girl in New Orleans.
Please.
In the first days of the world, after Adam had planted the grapevine, Satan in darkness came to it 4 different times, and each time he watered the grapevine with the blood of a different animal. First a peacock, next a monkey, then a lion, and finally a swine. Thus the grapevine grew until its clusters were ripened and its juices began to ferment. So now it is that he who drinks wine is first like a peacock, expansive and proud. Next he becomes as wicked and playful as a monkey. Then, the strength of the wine mounting, he grows wild and fierce like a lion. Finally, when he is overcome, he falls down and wallows in the mire, just as swine do.
Alice, what is the point of your telling the story?
I noticed last night that you drank 5 or 6 glasses of cognac with your coffee. No one can do that without ruining his constitution. Tonight already you've taken enough champagne to make most people drunk. You show no sign of it, but it will certainly have its effect.
I find you both so serious all of a sudden. What is this, a party or a wake?
Oh, my dear Edward, the Baroness looks most ravishing tonight. Why don't you go and pinch him for a while?
Oh, a splendid idea.
I'm sorry I had to be so blunt. When you consider it, I think you will know it's sheer affection that makes me tell you this.
No, you were right to tell me. I once had to say the same thing to Oscar Wilde.
It was over a year before I touched another drop of liquor.
Shall we go to the balcony upstairs? There's something I want to show you.
Were you and she lovers?
What? Oh, no. Princess Alice and I were friends. The only one I ever had who was a woman. Francis, tell me something. Do you think friendship between men and women is possible?
I don't see why not. Between a brother and a sister, and surely between a father and a daughter.
But that is it precisely. Friendship seems possible only when 2 people are not interested in each other sexually. I was not attracted to Princess Alice physically, and that was why she became such a good friend.
Do you see those trees in the distance over there at the foot of the mountain?
Yes?
Well, not such a good friend as it turned out.
That is the halfway point exactly, between Nice and Monte Carlo.
Really?
Frank, you know how horrified I am by all the gambling here. The vanished fortunes, and the suicides. Time and again I have begged Albert to alter the image of the principality, but he merely laughs at me.
What is it you want me to do?
That spot over there where the trees are,
Yes?
the land is not cheap, but it is available. The property can be developed into a fine resort, a sporting club, maybe even a good hotel. Wealthy travelers between Nice and Monte Carlo can stop there for déjeuner and get a very different sense of Monaco.
How much would such a resort cost?
Not much, considering the returns. I shall publicize the place among all my friends, turn it into the most fashionable spot on the Riviera. Will you help me turn this dream of mine into reality?
How?
I know that you have just sold the Saturday Review and that you have money to invest.
You'll more than double or triple your original investment. You'll quadruple it. How about it, Jimmy?
All right. Why not? It sounds like a good investment. With your patronage, the place is sure to be a success.
Who was it who said that wisdom comes with age?
I'll see my banker in the morning.
Oh, good. I knew I could count on you. It'll be our little project.
Before it was over, the little project cost over £25,000. It was more money than I had, and soon I was in a state of bankruptcy.
What happened to the princess and her patronage?
Albert took a strong dislike to me, and he forbade Alice to have anything to do with the hotel. The place was doomed even before it was opened. Night after night, I sat in the garden, my only companion, the servant.
Where's Lily? Where's Nellie?
She went from Paris to New York. Her voice teacher had somehow convinced her that she was ready for her singing debut and that America was the place to do it.
La 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 la.
In New York, she continued to spend money as though we were millionaires and paid no attention whatsoever to the letters and telegrams I sent her.
La 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 la.
Nellie, my darling, what are you doing in New York tonight? Why do you stay away when I need you? Come back, my darling. I want to slip into bed and find you there, waiting. I want to feel your arms around my neck, your legs against mine. I want to...
La 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 la.
Nellie, why do you act as though I do not exist? Why do you persist in torturing me this way?
I torture you? If only I could tell you the 10th, the 100th part of what I have suffered.
How have I made you suffer? Haven't I always
You
been
were determined to alter me, to reform me in your taste. I was like other girls when I met you, romantic and idealistic. But you laughed at the romance, sullied at the ideals.
Nellie, I love you. Why do you say such cruel things?
You killed everything in me that I loved in myself. My modesty, my innocence, affection, my trust in others, my belief in what is good and true. When I met you, the whole world was beautiful. I loved everyone, believed in everyone. You turned the beautiful world into an arena where men hate each other without cause, where girls are sold for social position and women give themselves without affection. How miserable you must be. Sometimes, Frank, I feel sorry for you.
Then feel sorry for me now. Can't you see I'm dying? Artists die, not because we are hungry or do not have a roof over our heads, but because of our dreams. It is the heaven we see before us and cannot realize, or else the paradise we've been driven out of that makes life disgusting to us and kills us.
La 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 la.
Nellie, I really do not object to your being in New York. What can separate us if we love each other? Say you love me, my darling. Say you love me. Nellie, have you never loved me? Was that why, even at the height of our intimacy, you always made me talk of the great fortune I would make, the great houses we would live in, the many horses and carriages we would own? Nellie.
A servant now emerges from the dark and addresses little Frank.
Sir, are you ready for the girl?
What girl?
Yolanda, the older sister of the 14-year-old. You asked me to send for her.
I'm no longer in the mood.
Shall I send her away?
No. No. Send her in. I could use the company.
La 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 la.
Oh, Nellie, I'm so tired. Stay in New York, my darling. Perhaps you and I never meant to be happy together. Once there was a girl named Laura. I was never meant to be happy with her either.
Why did she come back?
Who?
Nellie.
I don't know. Perhaps because her debut as a singer proved to be an unremarkable event. Perhaps because she couldn't find anyone else to support her in the style to which she had become accustomed. Perhaps because somewhere inside there was still some love left.
Yolanda now appears from the memory pool. She's dressed minimally.
Do you want me to undress?
Yes. What? No, not tonight.
Did you hear what he just said to her? I can't believe it. I cannot believe it.
Do you want me to leave?
No, stay. Why don't we just talk?
You prefer Flora and Clara. Is that it? Are they better than I am?
No, that isn't it either.
You are better, Yolanda. Much better. You are the best.
Come, sit on my knee. Let me feel your warmth. Why don't you tell me a story?
What kind of story?
Something personal and private.
Like what?
Do you ever excite yourself, for instance?
Sometimes.
When was the last time? Tell me.
Father!
Several days ago, in the tram, a very common-looking man came in and sat opposite me. All of a sudden, I noticed that his trousers were unbuttoned, and I saw that he was playing with his sex.
I cannot listen to any more of this.
What's the matter? I'm telling you the story exactly the way she told it.
I don't want to hear it. I'll come back later, when you're ready to work on the galleys.
What about you? You want to hear the rest of Yolanda's story, don't you?
Oh, yes, very much.
Go on. Don't be shy. What did you do after you saw what the man was doing?
It made me very angry at first, because he was so dirty and common. But as I stole glances at his enlarged sex, the sight of it began to excite me fearfully. I crossed my legs and squeezed myself tightly, and then suddenly I was wet. I could not help it.
Excellent, excellent.
Tell me another.
Some months ago, my father took me to the picture gallery in Genoa. I loved the paintings, especially one of a young man who looked like a saint. That night, when I went to bed, I thought of him and his lovely limbs and his gentle eyes. I touched myself with my hand, pretending it was him.
Open up, police.
Sumner. Who's he? Head of the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice.
Open up, Harris. This time I've got a search warrant.
Is it really time for him to enter?
No, not yet. You still have to commit my life and loves to paper and posterity. You would have approved of the string of secretaries who capitulated to your charms as you dictated your autobiography. The more graphic you got with your descriptions of sex, the more successful you were with the secretary.
Erica Lorenz now appears holding a newspaper.
Mr. Harris,
What do you want?
I saw your ad in the paper, and I'd like to.
Can you type and take dictation?
Oh yes, my last employer was.
I want to get away for a while to write my autobiography. Are you willing to travel? When can you leave?
Tomorrow, if you like. I have no family.
Good. Be here at 9 with your bags.
What? You don't even know her name.
That will be all, Miss...
Lorenz, Erica Lorenz.
Do you realize that you just hired yourself a secretary and that you never even looked at her? A beautiful woman was in this room and he never even looked at her.
I didn't, did I?
You've never done that before. What's wrong with you all of a sudden?
Just tired, I guess. Maybe it's time you took over.
If you hurry, maybe you can still catch Miss Lorenz. Buy her a cup of coffee or something.
At this point, old Kate Stevens emerges from the memory pool. She's carrying a packet of old letters.
Jimmy?
I'm sorry, the job has already been... What did you just call me?
Jimmy Harris, isn't it? You can't fool me.
Kate!
Is that you?
My God, what are you doing in New York?
Oh, I live here now. We must all raise more hell and less corn.
I thought you stayed on in Lawrence to teach after Byron Smith's death.
Oh, I did for 7 years, but then my father died too, and with him all of his influence at the university. The Board of Regents was unanimous in its decision to get rid of me.
On what grounds?
My sex, what else? And also my religious convictions, or lack of them, I should say. The fact that I am a woman is a casus belli to some members of the board, and that I do not belong to any church is a grievous sin in the sight of certain others.
Kate Stevens. You have no idea what memories your very name evokes. By the way, is it still Stevens?
Byron Smith now emerges from the memory pool and joins them.
Yes, I never married. On several occasions I was tempted to accept a proposal of marriage. but always his face would appear before me,
Byron.
and then I couldn't.
America is a country where every friendship is difficult and love rare.
That brings me to the reason for my visit. Jimmy, I have followed your career with some interest and greatly admire all the articles you write for Pearson's magazine.
Thank you. I try to do my best, but I'm afraid Pearson's will never be anything like the old Saturday Review.
You're inclined to underrate yourself, Jimmy. I've always said that.
I have here all of Byron's letters to me from Philadelphia and Denver.
Really? I too had some.
And also a photograph. It was my most treasured possession.
But they have long since disappeared.
I would like now to publish the letters in a book. I wondered if you would care to...
Kate, you don't know how fortuitous it is. You're coming at this time. I'm leaving tomorrow morning for the Catskills to start work on my autobiography. The letters will...
Oh, I cannot let you take the letters with you.
Yes, of course, I understand. May I read them here?
I've already marked the ones which reveal him at his finest.
I loved his spirit, as you know, but my memory cannot always recapture his exact words.
If only I had kept a diary, I would now have the very syllables that he used.
You heard, didn't you? The reason why he was fired by the university.
Something about his relationship with the girl he knew in Greece?
There's not an ounce of truth in that story. The rumor was circulated in order to justify his dismissal.
Byron did know a young lady in Greece.
Didn't he ever tell you about...
How can you claim to know the man and still believe such a story?
Dearest Kate, my medical expenses here in Philadelphia began to trouble me. How am I to pay all the doctors with what little I saved from the paltry salary that the university gave me? If I had been trained to some bread profession and not loitered so long in the lotus land of dreams, I should not now be so helpless. But no matter, I will be well soon, and we shall be married in February. No, I do not wish to live in Lawrence, not after the way I was treated by the university. Still, I often think about my favorite spot on the hill, where I used to stand in the morning waiting for you to come in from your father's farm.
His favorite spot on the hill. I remember standing there with him many times.
Always. As soon as your phaeton started to come up 14th Street, he'd say, "There she is, in her little crimson coat." And then all conversation would stop.
Dear Kate, the disease is stubborn. I get but little sleep at night because of the coughing and have so little strength and energy by day that even a short walk exhausts me. What this climate in Denver will do for me I have not yet seen, but I begin to despair. This is my 27th birthday. It seems like a long time since I was born.
Please, no more of that one.
Dearest Catherine, why do you condemn my writing to Frank Harris? He has been so persistently kind to me and seems to build so much upon my good opinion that I cannot find it in my heart to let his letters lie unanswered. Be reassured, however, that I am careful in all my correspondence with him. You know very well that I have no respect for his moral character.
No respect for my...
How can you say that after all we...
Jimmy, what are you doing? Give me that letter.
Here, take all of them. I've seen enough. His letters contain nothing original or worthwhile.
Perhaps it was a mistake, my coming here.
Yes. And now, if you'll excuse me, I still have some things to attend to.
About your autobiography.
What about it?
Do you intend to write about him and me?
Him, definitely. You, I don't know.
I wish you wouldn't. His temperament was so different from yours, and I'm afraid that you...
In 100 years, who the hell will remember you or Byron Smith unless it be in connection with me?
I forbid you to use any of the material I showed you today.
Miss Stevens, I have no interest whatsoever in your love life or lack of it. Do you want to know what your trouble is? You're afraid that I know more about Byron Smith than you do. I, who actually live with him.
Goodbye, Mr. Harris.
As for the part you played in my life, you can set your pathetic little mind at rest. I only write about people of genius, so you're perfectly safe.
That was cruel.
And the letter you wrote her about me, was that not cruel?
You weren't meant to see the letter. I wrote it merely to reassure Kate. You know how she's never liked you.
You would have done better to write her the truth about you and that girl in Greece.
She wouldn't have understood.
Remember how you used to wake up in the middle of the night every time you had a wet dream about that girl?
Yes, and then you came up with the extraordinary idea of tying a whipcord around the...
Lies, lies, all lies, lies.
Do men really feel drained and exhausted after sexual intercourse?
Certainly. Why else do you think athletes perform better when they abstain?
Did you really know so many women when you were young?
My dear Erica, when the rattlesnake's poison bag is full, he's forced to strike at everything, even blades of grass. The poor brute is blinded with the overplus, and he must somehow rid himself of the excess. In my youth, I too was blind through excess of semen.
This obsession you have with
sex,
I don't understand it.
Neither do the majority of human beings. That is why I wrote my life and love.
Frank, do you really think you understand yourself? Your autobiography suggests otherwise.
Each one of us is made up of a myriad contradictories. What am I? Everyone and no one.
The me I used to be so proud of is now obscured by all the others.
But when I think that that me is dead, all sorts of old emotions revive out of the forgotten past.
Erica?
Yes?
Has the afternoon mail come?
Yes, Mr. Harris.
And there is no letter from Nellie?
No. No, Mr. Harris.
La 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 la.
Where did we stop?
See you tonight, Mr. Harris, at the Savoy.
Let's call it a day, shall we? I'm tired.
Yes, of course.
In this, my 75th year, I find that the self is only an amalgam of memories. And all my various personalities are changing perpetually like clouds or shadows, continually forming and reforming, always passing. Did you know that I returned to Lawrence some years ago, and that I lectured from the same spot you did, the night you said Kate and I would be your best students? No. How could you? You were already dead 50 years.
There's not a flashback to the Free Congregational Church in Lawrence.
But the way you would have been proud, you would have been proud of me. The way I tried to stir up those people at the Free Congregational Church.
The only difference between your speech and mine was that I saw no sympathetic faces in the audience. No Kate, no Jimmy, and I found no converts. Like Walt Whitman, I believe in the flesh and the appetites. I say the body is beautiful and must be lifted and dignified by our reverence.
There is only one science, love.
Only one riches, love.
To make love is all the law and the prophets.
Everything you say contradicts the teaching of St. Paul.
Following the idiotic morality of St. Paul, we have all turned the goddess of love into a fiend and degraded the crowning impulse of our being into a capital sin.
And you dare to call yourself a Christian?
Who can doubt that it is the first duty of man to develop all his faculties to the uttermost?
This is my creed. The creed that guides and directs me.
I believe that everything high and ennobling in our nature springs directly out of the sexual instinct. You learn from the animals if you must, but in the end you are human beings, not sheep.
How many of you men really know the bodies of your wives and girlfriends?
How many of you plow your women the same way you plow your wheat fields?
How many of you take time to caress and explore a woman's body?
Her breasts, her thighs, her...
Mr. Harris, we is decent folks in this town.
Nonsense.
Are you not a woman? Have you no sexual passions?
As for this town, you forget that I lived in Lawrence when I was young.
Read my autobiography, madam, and you will know that...
There is more pussy in this town than all of...
Open up, please.
Wait a minute. You cannot go in there.
Open up, Harris. This time I've got a search warrant.
Frank, they came bursting into the apartment and there was no way I could...
All right, Harris, where are they?
What are you looking for?
The books, where are they?
What books?
Don't act the innocent with me, you damn foreigner.
We are not foreigners. We're both American citizens.
Search the room.
I have rights. The government cannot treat me as though I were a criminal.
In the eyes of the law, Harris, you are a criminal. Mr. Justice Levy has found it necessary to read only a few passages from your autobiography to arrive at the inevitable conclusion that it is neither literature nor art.
Frank!
Who is Mr. Justice Levy to condemn that which has been praised on both sides of the Atlantic?
Frank, there's no use arguing. Why don't we just pack up our things and leave?
Are you suggesting that we run?
That's not a bad idea, because the next time I see you, I'll have a warrant for your arrest.
We could go to France. The French are more civilized.
Listen to this review by George Meredith. If there is anyone writing in English who can do better than Frank Harris, I don't know it.
There's one, too, by H.L. Mencken.
Read him the rest, Nellie. Read him the rest of the reviews.
No reader who cares about the intellectual life of our times can afford not to reckon with the views and opinions of...
Let me see that.
There, are you convinced?
Ha! Just as I suspected. These reviews refer to earlier books, not to your autobiography.
The Frank Harris who wrote about the great men he has known is no different from the Frank Harris who writes about the women he has loved.
No, the Frank Harris mentioned in these reviews died long ago, and it is the cadaver that has been writing recently. The odor proves it.
How dare you?
My words not only capture the spirit, they also breathe life into the bodies of the men and women I knew.
The true liberation of women in the 20th century begins with my acknowledgement in print that women have bodies.
The only book of yours I've read is the autobiography. It is my belief that you wrote it merely for money. Mr. Harris, you're no better than a streetwalker.
The only obligation of the artist is to create the greatest work of art possible, to depict the mortality of the flesh so that it takes on the flash of immortality.
This I have done in my autobiography 10 times over.
My Life and Loves is art, not pornography.
Art? You call this art? As soon as Mr. Mayhew closed the door, she threw back her robe and stood before me, naked. Soon I was caressing her with my erect organ. And what about this? This moment my head was between Yolanda's legs. I opened the lips of her sex with my lips, thrusting my tongue into her as far as possible.
Stop it! Stop it!
What's the matter, Mrs. Harris? Am I not reading your favorite passage?
Just take the books and go.
How long is America going to accept its secondary position in art, in literature, in thought?
Has no one a new ideal for America?
To think that when I was a student in Kansas, I used to believe America was a country of undreamed of possibilities. There has not been a new idea in this country for more than 100 years. Get out. I want you both to...
Francis opens the door and looks in.
Father, is anything the matter? Can I get you a glass of water?
No. Champagne. I must live well or not at all.
Champagne?
Yes, quickly. We still have the new book to celebrate. The galleys. What are we going to do about the galleys? Who's going to...
What difference does it make who does the proofreading? Let Scully do it. Maybe he'll even get Shaw to help.
Help me to lie down, will you? I feel so cold.
Die now, and we will all roast in the nethermost parts of hell.
Why do you say that? Have we come to grief through self-indulgence? Did we lack respect for others? Were we careless of others' sufferings?
Fate has been kinder to us than we deserve.
Is this it? Can this be all?
Do you remember how warm it was?